Tonight on Page to Screen is screenwriter, director, producer, Howard Klausner. May I call you Howie?
Please.
All right.
Please do.
Thank you for being with us.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Howie, a lot of us here tonight are familiar with your work. Let's dig into the past and hear about your Genesis story. Where'd you get your start?
I grew up here in Nashville.
Oh, wow.
I went to high school right over the hill there at Hillwood High School, and drifted out to Los Angeles. I was going to be an actor and a guitar player. You see how both those two things worked out. I fell into film school, and literally fell into film school. I had absolutely no qualifications to get into Southern Cal, but I think it was because I was from Tennessee. That's what I really think.
You were exotic.
I was exotic.
Yeah,
that was exotic in 1983.
Yeah.
So I really kind of learned my craft there. I knocked around Los Angeles for several years, working independent movies, and just kind of realized, like, these genius tech people in here in this studio, I did not have that.
Yeah.
And I kind of realized the only thing I can actually do that I could actually move ahead in the business was write. So I quit my teaching job at 30 years old and went to work. Just, very, very cheap rent, and just like, I'm going to write. I was going to sell a screenplay in 1 year.
Did you live in Los Angeles?
I got some very reduced rent in Orange County. So I moved down to there, and just, I was going to sell my first script in 1 year.
What year was that?
That would be 1990.
Yeah.
In 1997, lucky number 13 sold, and it was Space Cowboys with Clint Eastwood.
Once upon a time, 4 of the best pilots in the U.S. Air Force trained to fly into space.
That's where we're going.
And they flew at the speed of sound to the very top of the sky.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to meet the first American to cross into outer space.
But our country had other plans.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. 11 days ago, atmospheric tracking determined that Russian satellite Icon will re-enter the Earth's atmosphere in 30 days.
Now,
the guidance system on this thing is a dinosaur.
the only men for the job
Is there anyone still alive who can fix this thing?
are the boys.
I can't fill up a space shuttle with geriatrics.
Clock's ticking, Bob, and I'm only getting older. NASA wants to send us into space. I told them I'd only do it if the original team did the job.
I'm gonna need to pray about this. Why the hell not?
You and your entire crew will have to meet the exact physical requirements as any other astronaut here.
Go.
These men are the pioneers of this business.
My damn teeth won't scream.
Damn, Jerry.
They were around when rockets were born.
Stick to their protocol, will you, Hawk?
Sock it to him.
I have never met a kid who didn't dream of being an astronaut when he grew up.
You ever met a kid that wouldn't grow up?
Thank you, God.
I'm not getting this crew killed, you included.
You miss, you're never going to make it back to the ship.
I thought this was gonna be hard.
So I've been
amazing.
fortunate enough to just kind of keep working ever since then.
So the moral of the story is never stop writing.
Don't quit. As a matter of fact, just to build on that, I mean, my 12th script still is the best script I ever wrote, and nothing.
What are some of your current projects?
And Reagan, the Ronald Reagan biopic starring Dennis Quaid.
I saw.
And
what a cast.
It's about as light on politics as you can be there. It's really about him and the Soviet Union, really, and him and Gorbachev, squaring off there at the end.
I will be frank with you that as a citizen, I would not like to see any political party outlawed on the basis of its ideology, because I still believe, Mr. Chairman, that democracy can handle it.
I was a brand new KGB officer, given my first intelligence assignment. A certain actor and union leader.
Dutch, there's a purpose for your life.
You can run from a bully for so long, but after a while, you're gonna have to stand up to him.
It's my boy!
There's about to be another war right here in Hollywood. The commies on one side, the mob on the other. And you're right in the middle, son.
If you put as much work into your career, career, as you do making your speeches, you'd have an Oscar by now.
Who's about to be another war right here in Hollywood? The commies on one side, the mob on the other. And you're right in the middle, son. If you put as much work into your career as you do making your speeches, you'd have an Oscar by now.
You'd have an Oscar by now.
Hello, I'm Nancy Davis.
Hello, Nancy Davis. I'm Ron Reagan.
I'm curious, Ron. What would you say is the issue of our time?
No question about it. Communism and the Soviet Union.
Get in the game. Run for office.
It's you!
I'm running for governor, and I would like your vote.
I forgot your name.
Do his initials help, RR?
Honey, Roy Rogers is here! And he's running for governor!
Ronnie, remember when we met? You told me that you wanted to make a difference in this world. You know what you have to do.
Governor Reagan again, typically, is against such a proposal.
There you go again.
But he was not afraid to take us on.
There's nothing a retired governor can do about the Soviets, but a president. Now he can do a thing or two.
Welcome to your life.
I was a lifeguard on a river,
There's no turning back.
and I learned how to read the currents. Not just the ones on the surface, but also the ones deep underneath the water. I am about to start the biggest war of this century, and I'm not gonna fire a single shot.
You're gonna blow up 8 years of diplomacy.
Well, if you think that got their undies in a wad, you just wait.
What did the president know, and when did he know it?
What would you have me do?
I want you to fight!
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
So Reagan sounds like a pretty high-profile assignment. So and it's attracted an amazing cast, like you said, Dennis Quaid. I looked at the list. I mean, there's just like a who's who in the cast, including C. Thomas Howell, which I thought was a pretty cool cast.
Yeah, he's fabulous.
Yeah, I love seeing him pop up. But so I understand the pitch for that was kind of unique. Could you tell us something about that?
Well, they had made a go of it, and it didn't work out. And so I got the call. I had discussed with them maybe writing it. They chose somebody else.
Oh no, that's it.
It didn't work out. So I got to
throw the table over, storm out of the room.
Exactly. Yeah. So I got a second chance at it. And so really the way that I thought was the best way to tell the story is to let's hear the story of Ronald Reagan, pretty much from birth to Mr. Gorbachev tear down this wall, through the eyes of the KGB officer at 100 years old, played by John Voight, who started his career wanting to take him out, and by the end of his career realized that that they really were the evil empire. And so so he tells us the story with a lot of cynicism toward Reagan, so it doesn't come off as this big sort of Reagan hagiography, for lack of a better word.
Right.
So that was basically my pitch. They loved it, so okay, let's do that.
The rest is soon to be history. So
I hope so.
A lot of people toy with the idea of writing a biopic. They're very hard to do.
Yeah.
And so since Reagan's a real person, how do you pick out the best parts about a real person's life as opposed to a fictional character?
Well, you certainly know the old adage, begin with the end in mind. And so, I knew that the real climax of the film was Mr. Gorbachev tear down this wall. And so to walk back all the way to childhood, and it borders on episodic, but I think director Sean McNamara has done such a wonderful job of transitioning really well with music and things like that of every era. Basically, it's decade by decade. And so within those times, what's growing, that theme is growing inside our character. He was instructed of the evils of communism and how, the Soviet communists killed people and wouldn't let them worship God, etc., by his mother, who was very religious. And so as he grew, and then he got to Hollywood, and when he was in Hollywood, he could see that there truly was, a big presence of communism in there. And then, of course, he moves on to the governorship and everything. It became his focus. So all these things happened to Reagan, and all the things that he did, but he never lost sight of that. And so that's, I think from writer to writer, I say find the thread. That theme. You say, what is happening here that relates to that. If it's just a scene, like it's the first thing they're going to cut. So
right. What about Dennis Quaid as Reagan? I mean, I think it's a great casting call.
It is spooky.
It
For
really
those of
is.
us alive during Reagan's years, just, you know, Dennis told me, he said, my biggest challenge, when he was growing up, this audience is probably too young to remember a guy named Rich Little, certainly, who was the greatest mime and impressionist that I ever saw. And that's what Dennis wanted to be when he was a kid.
Oh, I did
so
not
this
know
guy
that. Yeah.
can memorize. He can imitate anyone perfectly. And so as he told me, he said, my challenge is that this doesn't become me imitating Ronald Reagan.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Nancy, you know, so it's like, you know, I've got to really sort of
a Phil Hartman impersonation.
exactly,
Yes,
exactly.
yeah.
But he was brilliant.
That's great.
He was,
What's the most important thing to consider when you're writing character?
when you're writing character, two things. What do they want? And what's keeping them from it?
Excellent.
It really boils down to that, both external and mostly external is not that interesting. Internal is what it's all about.
Very good. You wrote Space Cowboys with a writing partner. I know you said you haven't had a writing partner in a long time, but
I did.
As someone who's written with a partner before, what advice can you offer up to those looking to pair with a writing partner?
Well, I've heard it compared to a marriage or a significant relationship, and I think that's true.
Yeah.
It's a rapport thing. It's like, oh, you're a screenwriter too, let's work together. That's a recipe for disaster. Yeah. You kind of need to get to know that person, and I'm comfortable. We have similar sensibilities. You don't want to be the same guy or the same woman. You want to kind of have complementing skills. Like for me, I was a dialogue guy. That's kind of my thing. And Ken is Ken Kaufman, terrific writer. He's a very good dialogue guy, but his strength was always structure. So, and we've kept in touch over the years, and we kind of laugh. It's like, you know, we were just young enough and proud enough of what we did. We both now admit, it's like, man, I learned a lot from you. I really did.
That's a kind thing to say.
It is, and we're very good friends.
Yeah.
We just went. He wanted to write Muppet movies, and I wanted to write great big political intrigue movies. So it's like,
but you have to have mutual respect. It sounds like
You
and
do.
you have to be friends. You have to
You
be
do.
able to take notes from each other. I'm imagining.
Yep.
What is a moment like that? Like when you disagreed? How did you? Let's say maybe a piece of dialogue that Ken disagreed with that.
What are you saying? That never happened. Ever.
My dialogue is perfect. Yeah, understood.
You know, I think it's it's like any other disagreement, and you know, especially when this is your job. You know, it's a professional opinion, and sometimes if you really want to dig in for a reason and with respect and say, I don't really agree with that, but it's kind of like when you direct something and the actor really wants to do this one thing. I got this on the script, but you know, I want to do it this way. And God bless actors, and sometimes they are way smarter than we are, but sometimes you're kind of going, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But the last thing you want to do is tell Tommy Lee Jones that.
That's right.
So you say, Mr. Jones.
Because he will crash land you on the moon and leave you there.
No problem.
Yeah.
And so it's this deal. Man, that is a great idea. Let's shoot that. Let's absolutely. Do you mind if we do it the straight way, you know, just to have it, you know, just in case? And invariably the answer is yes. And invariably it goes back to how it was written. But just saying, but just
you gotta give it a shot.
But the process is the same.
Yeah.
The process is the same. So with Ken, it would be a matter of, you know, it's like, Howie, I don't really like that thing, you know, and it's like, okay, can we just do a scene with it? And we would read together a lot of times. Reading things over out loud and get into character.
Sounds helpful.
That will tell you 80% of what you need to know.
We do a
any
lot
script.
of reading of pages in our group, and you learn so much from that.
Yeah.
So, two things. So, what's a positive thing of writing with a partner, and what's a positive thing about writing solo?
Man, that's a great question. I think the answer would be the most positive thing is everything I just said.
Yeah.
You have an instantaneous sort of filter's the wrong word, but you have sort of a check and balance within everything. Now, sometimes
does that help you move faster?
No, but it probably eliminates something later on where you go, you know what, that was a dumb way to write that or something. You know, so I think
instant.
Yeah, it's
feedback.
You're getting feedback.
Yeah, right.
That's instantaneous. And like I said, if you have the right partner and somebody you get along with and somebody you respect their opinion on that.
Yeah.
The best thing about writing alone, wow, I'm trying to think if there is any. It's been a necessity thing for me, really. I've just, this is kind of just where I am in my career. So I think if there's any best thing about it, it's the freedom to just sort of move as I wish to move. And sometimes, and I do more of the feedback stuff will come from the director or the producer I'm working for. So it's kind of the same thing, but it's not quite as immediate.
So we've talked a bit about Space Cowboys. Great film. So it makes sense that the film is going to be the focus of our special page to screen clip.
All right.
Let's take a look.
Sure.
All right.
Hey. Hey. You know what the worst day of my life was?
No.
Day Armstrong set foot on the moon. I guess I was the only one in the world that wanted to commit suicide that day.
Well, thanks for that, Frank. We hadn't talked in 12 years, and that's pretty much been the big question on my mind. What can make you commit suicide? What are you doing here?
Fulfilling a promise I made 40 years ago.
Was that the promise you made to kill me, or was that the promise you made to have both of my legs broke?
No, it was the other one. I'm working on a little blackmail with NASA. They've got a satellite that's going to crash unless they can fix the guidance system.
I'm guessing you designed that guidance system.
Yeah. They're desperate. Even Gersten's in on the deal. I told them I'd only do it if the original Team Daedalus did the job. Here it is, all in black and white. Jerry and Tank are in. They're down at the roadhouse across the highway waiting for us.
Old age just brings out more of the Frank in you, Frank. I'm genuinely impressed. But you don't need to be putting foolish notions in the head of a fool. Especially not a damned old fool. You have a nice life.
You weren't a fool then, but you're acting like one now.
Say hello to Barbara for me.
Yeah, well, you say hello to Jackie.
I wished I could. Jackie died on me, Frank.
Sorry, I didn't know that.
No, huh?
Let's get out of here. He's not coming.
Well, maybe we should talk to him.
He's the same stubborn jackass he always was.
And you still drive slower than a little old lady on her way to the church house, too.
Man, yeah. Let's hear it.
That's fun.
Yeah, you said
Fun
earlier.
to watch that again.
Yeah, I bet it was fun. You said earlier you love writing dialogue. That's a magnificent example of that. I noticed a couple things though between Eastwood and Tommy. So, Tommy stayed like he read the dialogue. He was doing the description. Clint Eastwood was a little off book, as they say. How close was that to what you wrote, and how does that make you feel?
I'm honestly going to have to look at the pages. I haven't looked at them in 20-something years, but I would say I think there's a creative reason for that, and there's a practical reason for that. The creative reason of that is Clint is very in the moment that he's in. He's also very terse.
Yes.
He doesn't like a lot of, and he sees a little block of dialogue. Matter of fact, the only time I ever received a not very nice treatment from him was he had a block of dialogue about like that. And he literally, at the end of when he finally got this thing right, he calls cut because he's directing the movie too. He looks at me and he goes, "Ah!" Like that. It's like, yes, sir.
Yeah. Howie, we have some aspiring writers here tonight. It looks like they're chomping at the bit to ask you some questions. Mind if we hear what they've got to say?
I'd absolutely love to.
All right. Hey, Howie, thank you so much for coming here tonight, first of all. So earlier you said that you didn't feel like you could do any of the other positions on set, but you felt like the only thing you could do was writing. What I'm wondering is, like, how did you know that writing was for you?
Well, I kind of grew up doing it. So, I mean, I was that kid who wrote the sketches for the pep rally for the football team because nobody else would do it. So that's kind of, and this was I grew up in the era of the original Saturday Night Live, so I was just steeped in all that. And back in the 70s, a lot of education involved, creating dramas and comedies around that. So I had a really good head start by the time I got to college. I didn't take any writing classes in college. It was only after I kind of went, hey, I know what I can do.
All right, so it's kind of like an intuition kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's the answer. Yeah, okay. Just like, it's like anything else. You just know, this is comfortable. This is something I like to do.
All right, thank you.
My pleasure.
Hi, Howie. Thank you for the discussion today. It was very helpful.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, when writing characters, what type of strategy or method do you use to bring out their eternal goal or purpose in the script?
I'm a big, if not flashback, reference guy to my characters, men and women, of something from their youth that formed that, what I think you're talking about, whatever that thing is. I think we're all sort of the grown-up version of the kid we really are. And our most important lessons and wounds, more importantly, I think we only really learn from our wounds. I think those generally happen in childhood and when we're quite young. And so either sometimes if it's really dramatic, certainly a flashback, yeah, we should really see that. If it's not, it can be a reference in a dialogue or sometimes a monologue, saying, I remember when I was 12 years old, my friend was killed in a car accident. Or, you know what I'm saying? Something along those lines. So he's like, I'm understanding this character a little bit more. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's kind of the way I do it.
Yeah, kind of building your way in through it, bring it back out.
Yes, so I understand, the character I'm looking at came up the road from whatever this event or this thing was.
Yeah.
So it's like, if it's just, we're just in the moment, and it's just somebody eating at a restaurant, it's like, I don't really know that character.
Right.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Howie.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming. I've already learned a lot.
Thanks for saying that.
But I would like to ask, you mentioned you were a dialogue guy. That's something you felt was one of your big strengths. Mm-hmm. Did you come by that naturally, or is that something that you developed, and if so, how?
I'm going to say both. I'm just... I talk a lot.
Welcome to the South.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I listen a lot.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite. I was just in an airport the other day, and I don't do this as this is my technique, but I find myself, especially when I'm traveling by myself, I get too much on my phone anyway. So I just and you just sit there and you can just listen. And just listen to what people say and how they say it. I'm not taking notes or anything, but and I seem to remember. So I think this is the natural part. I can't remember virtually anything I see. I remember things I hear for some weird reason. And the other thing is in my growing up, and I was an actor for quite a while, and so I think that sort of gives you sort of a. It's like, well, I'm not going to play soccer anymore, but I'm going to play softball. Okay, I'm already an athlete. So I think it's kind of like that. Everything just sort of converged into chatter.
Gotcha. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You wrote the screenplay for the story Grace Card.
I did.
And you mentioned earlier you were also working on The Apostle Peter.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes.
So what attracts you to a faith-based story, and what practical advice you can give is there that you can give to screenwriters who are interested in faith-based stories?
Boy, you're asking just a chasmic question. It's such a big thing, and I'll answer before I get to the direct answer of what has changed so incredibly much. And really, in the last 20 years, the faith movie has sort of emerged as a big economic force as well as a great spiritual force. You know, and it's funny because we think it's brand new. No, that's not true. Some of the original movies were adaptations of the Bible. D.W. Griffith, you know, did all these Bible
Pat
stories.
Boone, Crossing the Switchblade.
Pat Boone and things. So it's been around. Yeah. But in answer to your question, it's like anything else. I have a funny story. Can I do this with a story? And I got to be careful. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings when I say this. I was the 13th screenwriter to come onto the movie Soul Surfer as a writer. And Soul Surfer was having all kinds of problems. And one of the problems that Soul Surfer was having, I'm coming to the answer to your question, was that the family of Bethany Hamilton, the young woman who got her arm bitten off by the shark, is a deeply evangelical Christian woman. And she was 17, 18 at the time. They basically made a surf movie. And when the family saw the cut that they were Sony was ready to release, they went, our faith isn't anywhere in this movie, and this isn't us. This is not a proper depiction. So get to the writers. So they went through 2 more writers. I actually got the chance to sort of, you know, it was a Hail Mary pass. The producer at Sony said, "Can you please take a shot at this?" I'm like, "Of course I will." And the answer to your question is, I grew up in the church. I'm a believer. So, you know, it just comes kind of natural. I mean, it's like, you know, it's like anything else. Write what you know. If you don't know, you know, I wouldn't know how to write a Muslim screenplay. I don't know. But, you know, boy, I mean, I've been going to church since I was 5 years old. So it's really, you know, and and the last thing I'll say, and this is why it's such a huge question you ask here, is it has grown up so much, the Christian film. You know, for a while it was kind of like that, oh, that's nice, you know, but now it's like there are some really powerful movies coming out that are just not necessarily evangelical, but biblical stuff, like the Peter movie. I'm talking too much, I apologize. The Peter movie I just wrote, this is how Mel Gibson would write this, you know, and so we're going to be engaged in that kind of a character. And the best stories ever in the Bible. So, is that too long of an answer? I'm sorry, I kind of got off on a little tangent there.
That was great, thank you.
Thank you, my pleasure. Thank you.
So that was some amazing questions.
So they were really great. Those were good.
Yeah, good. We're out of time, but I'd like to thank our guest, Howie Klausner. Yeah. Thank you. Howie, on behalf of Page to Screen and the Tennessee Screenwriting Association, you have a standing invitation to come back anytime. We've loved having you, and thank you for all you do.
Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it. Right. Really enjoyed all of you. Thank you a lot.
All right. All right, to find out more about the Tennessee Screenwriting Association, including our meeting schedule and programs, or to become a member, visit us online at www.tenscreen.com or check out our Facebook page. We meet online through Zoom every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central. Except for the last Wednesday, of course. The Wednesday of the month, we're here in the studio. So, Howie, do you have any final words of wisdom for the group out there? You've got one chance to send something out there that's just going to knock us out. What is that?
I'd like to quote Dorothy Parker, who said, "I hate to write, but I love having written."
Yeah, very good. All right.
Start writing, everybody.
Thank you, Howie. Thank you. Yeah.